everyone on LinkedIn and beyond. It's your old friends Toby and Callie here with the Work Sucks podcast. My goodness, it's been a hot minute since we've podcasted here live on LinkedIn. Callie, how the devil are you?
Great. Planning an event. So, nothing new, I guess. Same old thing from every other episode.
Callie is I would say, the absolute don when it comes to doing events. If you've never been to a Callie organized event, you really are missing out, because there are some people that are out there saying this is like the HR event of the year and stuff like that. I could genuinely say I don't think your events are the event of the year. I just think they're just different events. They're like no event you've ever been to. So I don't know, Callie, can you give us a sneak peek into something cool that's going to happen at your event in October?
Oh, I think reinventing the conference is really the best thing I could say, right? Like, conferences are lame, they're boring. You have someone selling themselves on slides and you call that education. Like, I call bullshit. We're not doing that.
And for those who've not tuned into Work Sucks before, we get spoonfuls of spice throughout there. And Callie is straight out of the gate with a little bit of spicy opinion. It's not that spicy.
I
Conferences
thought you were going to
generally are.
say that you were there. That's why my events were great, because you
Oh,
just keep
God.
coming.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not plugged into usual arrogant Toby. God, and you know why they're really great? Because I'm there. Okay. Anyway, so let's migrate ourselves over to our first guest. So our first guest, our only guest. We only have one guest on these podcasts. For those who don't remember, yeah, it's actually 3 guests. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time here live on LinkedIn, we take a guest on their career, through their career, by asking them 8 questions. We ask every guest the same 8 questions about the worst moments of work and maybe some of the better bits as well. And then what we do at the end of each season is me and Callie run a comparison about the 12 ones we've heard. So this is actually season 2. We're midway through season 2 now. Just as we're at the point of recording, we've just finished season 1, so we're just about to next week record our recap episode there. So if you haven't gone back and checked out season 1 and don't want to check out every single episode, just listen to the bonus ep at the end of season 1. You can listen to the whole recap of those 12 incredible episodes.
Check us out twice a year and you can be completely caught up on Work Sucks.
We're like in sitcoms when they do like those recap episodes, like it's like, oh, we need some filler. It's those. It's one of those, but for the Work Sucks podcast. We know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. Right. So our guest today is one Patrick Mullarkey. Now, I have worked with Patrick not once, not twice, but 3 times. And more recently, we've vowed never to work with each other again. But I think Patrick is probably one of the nicest people I know. He's so humble and he's so giving with and thoughtful in everything he delivers. I'm quite interested to see which side of the sword his answers will follow. Will he come out with fire or will he come out with cool water energy? And so with that, let's introduce to the stage one Patrick Mullarkey. Patrick, hello.
I love how you describe our relationship. I just can't quit you, Toby. And just to reassure anyone listening, it's fire today in the UK weather-wise. So I think we've got to lead a little bit towards that in terms of where this conversation takes us. But it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I think Patrick is usually down with the kids with his language. And when you said fire, I thought you were going into like Gen Z language. I thought.
Not really. No, let's not carbon date me right at the start of the podcast. But nice try, Toby. Nice try.
What's your favorite Gen Z slang?
Can I get a list, please? Just some samples, some examples.
Yeah, Callie, can Patrick get a list?
Yeah, and then I'll pick one because I don't know it. But go on, just roll with it.
Well, my examples are incredibly outdated because I have a 6-year-old, and so he's just gotten into the 6-7 thing.
Oh God.
Yeah, only just 6-7.
I'm so behind this. Yeah, well, yeah, and he does that, and then was like, "Well, tell me what that means." And I think I essentially embarrassed him out of doing it again, which wasn't my intention, but
I'm not sure. Just to build on that, I'm not sure it's a Gen Z thing. I have an 11-year-old, and they pick up these stock phrases, especially in sporting arenas. So he's quite involved with his football team, loves it, plays. And the 2 phrases that they all seem to like throw around is, first of all, when they're resigned to something happening, like, it is what it is. And it's like, well, just what does that even mean to you? They can't. And the other one is lock in. lock in, lads, lock in, boy. And like, if you ask them, like, what does that mean to you? I actually don't know. I really just, I just say it. Like, and we're like, it might mean pay attention. And they're like, probably not. That's not what I do when I lock in. That's not.
Skibbity toilet. Skibbity toilet, no skibbity toilet. Riz is obviously one. We all know Riz, right?
Yes.
Riz, or let them cook. That's like the big one at the moment. Let them cook. Like, sit back and let the other person do the stuff.
That you've reminded me. That is one he loves. Like, let him cook. He sent that as a meme to my wife on WhatsApp once, actually. And she was like, "What is this? Is Dad cooking? What's happening?" She's like, "No." He's like, "I'm not going to explain it." Yeah. So there you go.
Job, Mum.
Yeah, Mum. Not here. Not my dad. Let him cook with that cat. I'll go with that. I'm not sure that's Gen Z or not, but I like that.
Good. Well, that, you know what, dear listener, that isn't actually part of the official 8 questions that we ask here on the podcast. Callie, I also have to do a little production note live on the podcast. Riverside, our production tool of choice. If you've not got Riverside, get it. What a platform. It's now got a soundboard, so we can actually do a sound effect in between each question.
Ooh.
So I'm going to play the sound effect, and then you can ask question 1. So let's try this out. Let's see if it works, okay?
Tell us about your worst interview question. I can't talk that low. I'm sorry.
I feel like just the music. It's like I'm on the what's the weakest link or something like that. My worst interview question. It's a pretty stock one, but I think it stands up to reason. And now more than ever, because I still hear people want to ask it or share that they asked it. It's like, where do you see yourself in X amount of years' time, 4, 5 years? And the reason it bothers me is because in those moments, you're just looking for platitudes as an interviewer. You're not looking for any data, really. And when I speak to recruiters and TA teams, they're so brilliant at trying to work with stakeholders who want to ask this question and get them to put some nuance around it. And the reason it is, part of the reason it bothers me is because I've been that candidate who's consciously thought proactively beforehand. If I get asked this, what do I think they want to hear versus over what's the reality of my situation? I remember very early on in my career where I answered way too honestly when it was a consulting organization, and we built up rapport with the I got a really good rapport with the manager, hiring manager, and we got to the face-to-face interview with her. And she was wonderful. Like, I genuinely, if I'd got the job and worked under her, would have really flourished and learned loads. But she asked me that question, and I just replied too honestly. I joked, first of all, like, well, I want to be in your seat in 5 years. She took it that well. She was like, wait, but seriously, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I might do this, I might do that, I might go into consulting, I might actually still be in-house. And to be honest, the most I can give you, like data-led firmly, is a commitment to 12 to 18 months. I can pinpoint events and milestones and projects and stuff that I've got in mind. And that's what I'm looking for from the experience. Woefully naive in that situation as a candidate, like woefully. And when I got through to the next stage, I can tell that had been fed back, and it really had aggravated the manager's manager. Toby's face right now is a picture. They were so annoyed about that response because they'd taken it as being, in some ways, I think, disparaging for the opportunity. About, well, actually, how grateful or excited is this person about it? And it was a great role, but also I was just naively, candidly honest and open. And the fact that they didn't hear or think they heard like a contract of service verbally meant that the role that I was going to be ruled out as a candidate. And that's why it bothers me, because it's a question that doesn't really give you anything to work with as an employer. And from the candidate side, it's, if you're transparent and authentic, it's really high risk. So for both parties, it's kind of like a pretty rough output. There's other questions like around all the inappropriate stuff around, like, kind of, what's your marital status? Do you have family? All the stuff that kind of in the UK and other parts of the world might be covered by employment law to not ask or explore. But yeah, that's probably the one that keeps coming up in my mind.
Do you have a general answer now?
The general answer now. So my general answer now is, in the next 12 to 18 months, and I stick to kind of a more polished version of what I originally gave, of something along the lines of, this is what I'm looking for, or I think I have the opportunity to do in a role or project if I'm working with a client. This is the ambition or the opportunity I think we've got together. I might be way off, but this is the roadmap I have in mind. So I use it as an opportunity like to showcase some of my thinking. What's good is, for me personally, one, I feel like I'm being authentic and honest about and transparent about what my intent is. But secondly, it gives them some data actually like that guy's in cloud cuckoo land, or actually that guy has a robust idea of how he might land some of this stuff. So clients and so on, if they want to work with me, they have a sense of how I'm thinking and feeling towards how they're describing their situations and what they want to do. So yeah, so in some ways it's the same answer, but it's a better version after some of
But
those experiences.
that's what I was going to say was the way you articulated that answer. First of all, I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's actually a really well considered answer because, well, the first answer was in your seat in 5 years, which I'm almost certain I've probably said that. Well, you know me well enough to go. That's probably something Toby would have said. I genuinely think said in my first performance review at a company, like as part of probation, like, what? How do you think it's gone? I said, I don't think you're running the company very well. We'll move on from that one quite swiftly because otherwise I'll name drop who it is.
Where did that thinking get you?
I not terribly far, because I'm not there anymore. But it's very hard. Like it's a very hard question for anyone to answer anyway, especially in this volatile and uncertain world, right? And so I think like it's not a tactical answer, but it's like a short term strat. Like in 18 months, this is probably what I can achieve. And 5 years will be determined by what I do in those 18 months here because it's an unknown role and all that kind of stuff. So I think the logic behind the answer is to be applauded, and I see how in that newer version that you've got makes a lot more sense. But your point is really interesting because it's a two-way conversation, right? Not a one-way conversation, or it should be at least.
Yeah.
So if you delivered that answer, I'd be like, I don't hear that very often. And I get the sense that you're being honest. So I would actually want to explore that more and get to the point that you've just said. So I think it's kind of extremely naive for someone to kind of just use that as discounting data, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and also it's cliche, but what's meant for you won't pass you by. So as a candidate in those situations, I often think if how I frame that on my thinking is in line with what they need, hey, that's not a bad thing. But I'll share another illustration. It was a similar question, not the exact same question, but this is going back about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, where I don't know how we landed on it, but it was like a 2-person panel, relatively informal, but like a good conversation. And the second stakeholder asked that type of question, but the timeline was like a 4 or 5 year thing. But they were insistent. They wanted the 4-year plan. They were absolutely rigid on it. And I was like, look, I don't know how to break it to you, but like kind of your sector and service and your product and everything, you're good. You have a customer roadmap and a product roadmap that's got 6-month buckets that's probably out of date out after 2. You can't be serious about looking for like some sort of resolution or answer for like a 4-year thing. And this is where it gets interesting. The dynamic is it became about his ego a little bit. I'd peaked something by coming back with that, whether you view it as antagonistic or not, like might be a separate thing, but he then couldn't let it go. And he was like, I'm going to need the 4-year plan. I'm going to need, and it's like, well, hey, just I can spin you a yarn if you want, but I put it more tactfully. But I was like, any candidate who's coming in here to give you that either is not understanding or appreciative of your environment, how you operate, the realities of your sector, or they're just giving you what you want to hear. Now, which is more useful is up to you. But I'm like, I can't give you a straight answer to that. I can give you like 18 months at best, maybe 2 years at stretch, but who knows? So it's interesting how it is triggering in those situations for both parties sometimes. But it comes back to like, what's your intent? What are you looking to uncover? And also, what does good look like? And I hear it from a lot of TA and recruiters, like when they have those kickoff meetings, what does good look like in terms of candidate responses as they perform through the process? They really struggle with certain managers, and it's no coincidence that then their pipelines, their roles to fill are harder as a result. Never thought I'd stand up so much for recruitment teams on a podcast, but here we are.
If you had to guess, what answer do you think that he wanted?
I think. Do you mean the one with the individual who's slightly offended?
Who's like 4 years, go?
Yeah, I think it was 4 years, first 12 to 15 months settling in with these goals or aims. Year 2 and 3, looking to build out career frameworks, talent management, whatever the big North Star project is, I would invent in that moment because it hadn't been outlined as an ambition by the team. And then something that leads to I think really when people ask that question, what they want to validate is this person ambitious? So to any candidate who needs to do that, I always say, are you going to talk about promotion? Because it sounds like that's what they're looking for you to plot a route map to how you get promoted. Now, often that's not helpful. Often that can be a bit of a delicate thing to flag. But when I've heard people land these questions or land roles successfully, it's often they get feedback around oh yeah, you had a plan, but the bigger thing was oh, you're quite ambitious, you really wanted to go somewhere with it without seeming threatening in terms of how you think or you approach things. Which is fine, by the way. And again, this is all about a little bit transactional, and being what you're comfortable with in the context of a conversational situation. But I would feel very uncomfortable if I've given some sort of stock answer like that, whatever that version is of the truth at that point in time. And we arrive, and this guy turns up day one in employment. It's a completely different outlook and persona in terms of working with someone. So, you've got to be transparent with yourself in those scenarios and situations.
I told you, the level of depth of Patrick knows no bounds. Every conversation I ever have with Patrick, he just makes me think existentially.
I feel like there's a
everything.
cheap shot coming.
No, there genuinely isn't.
Literally.
But you trigger my brain to go into this existential kind of domain, which is always kind of weird because I think you think so deeply and thoughtfully about things. I have nothing to really add to that. Yeah, there should be a quip. Oh,
I just am analyzing how I've answered that question in the past and just sort of my misread of what they probably were wanting to get at with it. And part of it is I live in a very conventional area, right? And so one of the biggest interpretations I've always made with it is you want me to say that I'm going to be here.
Is that what they want? Is that what they like?
I don't know, and maybe that's
you're going to be here and committed to the cause.
Your interpretation of it makes so much more sense, and I think I've said it maybe a more aggressive version of that. But yeah, has been sort of my read of what we want to make sure that you're someone who wants to grow with us and not someone who's I want to be a real estate agent and I just need some money while I launch my side gig.
But both of those are
real estate agents here.
But both of those are, for my money, extremely valid answers to the question, because I think we talked about it a lot, right? It's a two-way relationship, employment. I think there is a huge amount of bias one way than the other. But to be able to have that level of honesty is hey, look, I don't want to be here forever, but I need a job. I got family and kids. I need to get paid. And if you give me opportunity, I'm not going to phone it in. That's not what I do. But in the short term, I want to come here and do a job. Will you allow me to? No, because you won't be here in 3 years, and you said you're not going to be here in 2. It's well, yeah, but that could be the same for any employee. Just because you say you're going to be there for 5 years, doesn't mean you're going to be there for 5 years. You can literally say anything.
Well,
I want to retire here.
I will say the context is I have had conversations with career HR people in this community who have said, oh, you don't tell us your salary requirements. We tell you what this job is going to pay.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, that's an interesting. So say more about that. Where does that conversation then go?
Well, basically, I mean, this is a very outdated old person mentality who clearly didn't have to pay for their education. Of no, you create your budget for your life around what we are going to pay you versus you telling us what amount of money you need to make for this to be interesting to you, which I think is so backwards and silly.
Well, both of those are important starting positions for either party, I think. But the conversation is, where do you meet in the middle for that? Because realistically, a company can't pay you what it wants to pay you because it would pay you the lowest amount it could feasibly do to get you in. And obviously, it can't pay you probably the top end of what you would like to live your life, because that might be unreasonable potentially. And so those two starting positions, those two end states will never happen. So it's got to be about how do you get to that middle point. The issue is that no party is really willing to open into an open and honest conversation here. And so it becomes this quite arbitrary binary conversation. This is what we offer, so this is what you'll get. And it's like, well, work is a bit more nuanced than that. To be, and relationships are way more nuanced than that.
And I would say then just make sure you're sharing salary bands when you post the position. And this is an area where that does not happen on a regular basis. Now, on the Minnesota side, that legally is required to happen as of the last year or two. But on the North Dakota side, you don't have to do that. And that's where those people specifically that I've had
That's
those conversations with
fascinating.
work. Yeah,
It's almost like in London, if you're north or south of the river, how that would affect the advert and what goes into it. I've been that candidate who's applied for interesting roles with no salary information on, but then made it explicit if I got to a conversation, it's like with the recruiter, when the time was right in the conversation, hey, just to make you aware, this is what I'm on, and this is what I'm looking for.
yeah.
And I always think, like, I know there's a macroeconomic element to this. Don't get me like confused or like misrepresented. I understand and appreciate the pragmatism of that, but a scarcity mindset is a race to the bottom. So someone's saying like, you budget your life and your family's well-being and security based on what we're looking to manage our margin. To Toby's point, like, no one benefits from that. And again, if there's a surplus of candidates, if there's a buyer's market, different question. And we're going to see some of that structurally in economies with white collar roles being so affected by AI in the next like year or two. But there has to be a point in time around, well, again, it comes back to that, the answer to the 4-year question was like, what's your expectation? What can you live with? Like, what do you want to be living with and on practically? But what do you think you're worth? What are you looking to walk towards as well? And sometimes it's helpful to set that out. Yeah.
Interesting. I think just to wrap that question up, I think one of the questions I have been asked in interviews, like, what's your dream? Like, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to build tree houses for a living. You know what? I love being outdoors. I love making things. I love not being around people for the vast majority of my life. And there's a bit of creativity in there. I get a dream weave what a tree house looks like and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's genuinely like baffling that you even asked that question, because like no employer has ever asked that question before. And therefore, I really feel empowered that you care about like the trajectory of my life, for only that piece of information never to be ever discussed ever again for my time of that organization. I was like, guys, you were so close. You were so close. And they ended up being some quite terrible bosses. And with that, let's move over to question number 2. Sound effects are great.
So we're gonna go like not a 180, but kind of go from right from the beginning to like the heart of it, and ask you about your worst boss.
God, can I just say the budget that's been spent on the sound effects? It was a bargain at twice the price, whatever it was. This is. Oh gosh, it's gone downhill now. No.
I got sound effects for days. Don't mock the sound effects, dude. Otherwise, they'll come right back in your face.
It's really so the tone of the pod is going downhill now. Who allowed you on deck?
Evolution in real time. I'm so glad you're here for it, Patrick.
We are iterating. This is agile, capital A. My worst boss. So this is a really interesting one. So anyone who looks me up on LinkedIn afterwards, you'll see like I'm not an employee that hangs out for like that 4 or 5 year question. Longest time I've been anywhere is 3 years, and I've been working for approximately 22, 23 years. And I think my average tenure is 18 months. So I think I'm putting that up front is, 1, I've got a big sample size, but 2, also, that says something about me as a employee and someone to manage. The worst boss I had was towards the start of my career at Redacted and Person Redacted, however we label that. And it was within the people team. And I think that's important to say, because I think sometimes we get a hang up that somehow we don't have these issues in our own house, but we do. And I was thinking about this coming on today, I don't think this is a person who acted in malice. I don't think it was a specific agenda against me, but I think there's something around status and ego in workplaces sometimes that mean people do some funky stuff. And how this kind of manifested for me is that the the worst traits of micromanagement kind of came out very quickly within the first 2 weeks. And the irony was actually they'd lost 2 employees who had quit very early, like one during their probation, another who was there like a year and was like, I've had enough of this, I'm off. My tenure ended up being double what theirs was put together, or something stupid like that. But the thing that made them more so frustrating to work with, and I look back at it now, it was very odd. It was one around what they valued. What they really valued was misaligned with what we needed to deliver as a team or individually. It was more about their preferences and work style. A good example was they put a real value on how to put it, attention to detail, which is an essential thing to be celebrated and kind of adhere to, but wasn't interested in tools that would help you with that. So, for example, we had this tool where you could generate letters if had an employee update of some significance. I don't know, like say someone got a promotion or some sort of pay rise. The stuff you automate naturally, and they were hugely averse to this and were expecting us to do that, the teams to do that manually, year on year during promotion rounds, but also during iterations or changes as they came up. So it's almost they viewed these avenues and these opportunities to like micromanage, dig into the detail of how they wanted something done, which first of all, there were services and tools in place to do it in half the time or less, and they ignored them. Or also they'd use it as a platform to kind of pick a hole or punch through like a suggestion or statement. And the start of the turning point for me, and this is where it escalated some other stuff, was I generated a letter. I was like, do you know what? It's Friday. I got stuff to do after work. I got somewhere to be. I'm going to do these letters using the tool that everyone knows is there. I remember like I printed it off and signed off on the desk, and then they started. I could see they were correcting it. Like I was like, "What are you doing?" And it's like with that name and that intonation, it was like a double-barreled surname of some form. I was like, I've used that with our own company data, using company information and process. What is? I don't understand what's to be corrected here. And it's like, well, that doesn't read correctly to me as I understand it. I was like, wait, hang on. We're doing this by you're picking and choosing the rules. I didn't say this out loud, but that's when it dawned on me. It's like, wait, this is based on preferences, how you operate and behave. And then how that escalated was just like around various things and instances where, wait, this is more about your own status and your own ego having to manage up for that, not for other things that are more important than what we're meant to be doing here. And I would say to someone, if anyone's going through something similar like that, because it really did affect me. I remember vividly after about the first year or so, it started to affect my confidence as an employee, how I operated. I'd allowed it to get up in my head, sleepless nights, all this stuff. If you're having to deal with that, where it's someone's preferences over what's professional, this comes back to the value in yourself piece. Like find somewhere else and explore opportunities that you think might be of more value or better to work with, because your headspace is the most priceless real estate you'll ever have, and you should guard that as much as possible. And then gradually, just like this sounds like the example I gave there was kind of a piecemeal, kind of a bit cosmetic, but how it escalated from there was then like kind of conversations or project opportunities. I wouldn't be brought into them. It was almost like I was managed, kind of, there was like gatekeeping going on, to the point where eventually I just, like when I got to the end of my tenure, I was so excited to move on. And I took a massive risk at that point in time where I was moving out of like generalist HR to look at more formal leadership and learning development. Turns out best thing for me, love where I'm at and what I've done ever since. But the prompt stimulus, I never would have, I think I might have pivoted sooner if my confidence and self-worth was higher. But I spent too much time around this manager who just kind of kind of picked holes at me. And the lesson, just to kind of finish this and then kind of round it out a bit, was I think you can be like a bad communicator. I think you can be overly aggressive, dismissive, whatever. But consistency is as big a thing. So I've worked with people who've been that persona, but they are quite consistent with it. So I can understand and prepare for a conversation that I might not be looking forward to, but I've known the terrain and how to navigate and what a good outcome might look like at its best. When you're dealing with someone's preferences and you don't know how and when they're going to be indulged and you've got to operate around them, like, that's like, you might as well just get the tarot cards out and hope for the best. And that's, I'd say, for managers and leaders, when I'm working with them, is your principles and values and your approach to how you want to be known as a leader will come out with how consistent you are in terms of your traits, behaviors, what you celebrate, what you encourage. That's on you. If it's just dealer's choice every day and morning, no one can work with that. And that's how I end up that work does suck when you're in those situations. That was a monologue, at least 2 or 3 minutes long. Easily the best therapy I've had this year.
I'm helping someone navigate this right now, and it's bringing back a ton of bad memories. It's been really trippy just to try to support them and one, be like, I get it. This really sucks. Like, it is messing with you. That's justifiable. But also just, why are there so many self-indulgent people who approach work that way? Should not be as common as it is.
I have a theory around it of again, trying to be positive. No one's got wakes up every day and has got like a doll they're putting pins of a doll Patrick with pins in or whatever, or like an agenda. Toby's wavering, maybe not. But what you do end up doing is being conditioned. So if I do process or task ABC, I get output XYZ. Oh, right. If that works that way, I'll do it again. And organizations, especially senior leadership execs, I use this phrase, I used part of it earlier. You can, when you're a candidate or when you work in an organization, can you identify what behavior is celebrated, what behavior is accepted, and what is just completely flat out ignored? And the last two around what's accepted, what's ignored, is your compass to understand, right, is this the kind of place I want to work with, be at? Because I'm kind of complicit in joining in that kind of environment as well. But it's not easy, and it's and just to acknowledge privilege. I've come out the other side, I now do my own thing and everything, which is great. But I appreciate those candidates, especially in different parts of the world and regions where roles aren't as plentiful. There might only be 1 or 2 big employers. And if you have environments where they condition people to allow them to operate in a certain way, that's where you need good, strong leadership to identify or outline, wait, this is how we behave, this is how we operate, regardless of the destination for the organization. This is what we accept, this is what we celebrate, this is what I cannot ignore if I'm a senior leader. And it varies from place to place, obviously. But I agree with you. Everyone's got a story of sorts to share. I'm sure I've got more salacious ones, but I suppose the most PC one I could come up with.
Oh, you don't have to go PC.
Well,
as much as you want to, obviously.
We're just building trust here, Callie. You and me, we'll get there. We'll get there.
As you maybe are learning, I just go all in. So we're best friends now.
I know. I felt it too. Toby, nice knowing you.
Yeah, Callie has a habit of doing this, nicking my friends and then being best friends with them, and then they're not friends with me. Because Callie has now just told me literally before we went live that one of my very good friends is going to go and see her in 2 weeks. Great.
Wow.
I'm flying halfway across the country to hang out with me for 2 days.
Wow. You're not in that WhatsApp group, Toby? Yikes.
No. Apparently not. So this is the last Work Sucks podcast, everybody, because Callie will be doing it with Rocket next time, and I will be just crying in a corner by myself. Patrick, would you like to do a podcast with me? Because Callie's going to jump me sometime soon.
No, I'll be with Callie and Rocket. Bad time to mention that.
There wasn't a right answer, but that was the right answer.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So you mentioned briefly there that you transitioned a part of your career from kind of generalist HR and people stuff into training and learning and development and leadership. So I think it's about time for question number 3.
Tell us about your worst training course.
Oh my God. This look, I got to call out a vested interest because this is my line of work. And there could be someone sat there who might have had a moment in time or something where I built out or they've experienced of me and they're like, this guy, he's the problem. He's my worst training course.
Yeah, do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, just whenever you're ready. Yeah, if you could just go to the breakout room for 10 minutes. My worst experience of a training course was, I'm trying to think how does I've got the example in my mind. I'm trying to do this tactfully and sensitively because there's people I still know well now who know exactly what this is about. But there was a supplier that was kind of doing a sample of, let's say, a sample workshop. It was basically shrouded or presented as a pilot of sorts, and it was easily like if someone could have burnt down, like in terms of a training or workshop experience in person, this was it. Now, just to kind of put it up front, it wasn't like the worst in terms of being dull or boring. Everyone has those, it happens, but like this was worse because of the fact the group weren't just bored, they resented and were rebelling after about 90 minutes of this thing. And it was see, I want to describe it, but again, I'm trying to be sensitive.
But just whilst give you a moment, just think about the sensitivity. But 90 minutes, how long was the actual thing?
Oh, one day this fix. But after about I remember I was sat there after about 45 minutes. I was like, I'm not going to say which role I was in my learning career because that might give it away. But I was more at the junior end of my journey, the spectrum I'm on now. I remember sat there thinking, I'm not a freelance or contractor, but I got a bad feeling this is not going well. I'm not the lead buyer in the room. I'm like, this is not great. This is so. And then the group who were in the room was super intelligent. And this is actually was one of the greatest things about working in this organization. Super, super, super bright. Toby's wheels are turning now because he's kind of trying to work out how aware or where this place is. Now, the problem, what that meant was, if you came up with something half-baked, there were two things that, regardless of what the situation was. One, they'd have feedback to pull it apart. Two, they probably could, on the fly, build something better, like a solution, an idea, a concept. What that meant was you had about 25 of these experienced high performers. Within the 90 minutes, it started to pick up on the fact, right, this isn't quite the thing. Even if it's a pilot, this is burning down more readily than we thought. And we're starting to pitch in with hey, why don't you do this for the next 20 minutes, 45 minutes? And I remember I was saying, that's a great idea. Jesus Christ, that's so good. And what have you thought about this concept in this? And then they'd reel off something and someone else chip in and you'd be like, oh, wait, you're the author of that book? Oh, okay. Let's spend 5 minutes. Oh, wait, you've got a blog on this? I don't know, this unique approach to this technique. Stuff like that and it was a great example of, if anyone's listening, if you're in-house or otherwise, when people ask to do discovery work, when they want to validate, one, the client brief or what your management is saying, this is the problem or opportunity we want to address with this learning leadership intervention, do the discovery work with the end user, do it properly, respect it, buy into it. Because that I saw firsthand, that 90 minutes was some of the most uncomfortable that gradually I got, because I realized, wait, they're like a pack of animals now, this group. They've smelt fear, they've seen it, and they're diving in. We got to the first tea break, and it was kind of hey, how's this going for you? And I remember my manager, who's lead buyer, is hey, how's it going? So they're tricky, but we're getting there. We're making progress. We've lost some time on this conversation. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this, I'm so naive because it feels so much worse in my seat. I just don't have a clue what's going on. I'm so gullible. He's so on it. And it escalated. It got to the point where we got to a period, I think it was after lunch, either side of lunch, where they'd kind of given up. They'd kind of given up and had declared hey, this basically waving the peace flag of this is meant to be a pilot, XYZ hasn't worked. I've repeated this again and again to try and see the ethos has landed, and basically we had to take a break where we pivoted. We would kind of make a call there. It's like, do we send this person, like, do we just send them home, let them go, and close the whole day for this group we've pulled together? Or do we use this as a proxy discovery in some form to then pivot, and then he can apply and do some stuff as the day goes on? And just for context as well, this person is super able, super bright, super, like, I think in the right environment, great at what we did. I think it was a failing as on the buyer's part of not giving him the right data or, like I say, discovery work at the right time. But by the time we got to like 4 p.m, 4:30, it was like everyone was like, like stop punching him, he's dead already, kind of thing. Like everyone had kind of, by 2:00 onwards, they stopped giving feedback, and that was kind of worse because then everyone was like, oh god, we just want to get out of here now. Like we're done trying to fix something that's heavily broken. So the outcome from that is like they did not get the contract or the project straight after.
No, get out of town, really.
But the funniest bit, I remember talking to my manager on the way out about it. I was like, hey, did you put any risks? Or that felt bumpy in my seat. Like, I don't know, like you're a bit more experienced in this. And they were like, I think it's going to be okay. Like, there's some rough moments, but actually, like, we've got 60% of the thing, and clearly someone had passed messages up the hierarchy by like 10 a.m. the next day. I remember I had an early meeting, came in, and then I saw them, and they were like, I've just emailed them, say it's a hard no. It's like, okay. And it's a good example, going back to what we discussed earlier, hierarchy and ego. Me asking the question, very junior at that point, out of curiosity, but also to assure myself, like, wait, is this the right thing we're going with? Are we doing it? Didn't matter that I was indirectly raising concern. Hierarchy, getting wind of what happened and then cascading down like their view without even being there was enough to knock this dead on the head. But it was easily the worst. I remember vividly, it was like a period from like 11:15 to about 12:30. I was like, I can't. I'm really struggling to make eye contact with people in this room who I really respect, and the person. And I was like, there's only so many toilet breaks I can take because I'm so cringing, like so tough in the room right now. But yeah, the lesson there to anyone listening, I would say, is do your discovery work. Don't accept discovery work from third parties, from stakeholders who think they've heard something. Do your discovery work. It's your insurance and validation that you're actually going to build for the right stuff. So yeah, I hope that gives a flavor. It's tricky. Like, maybe we can explore a little bit more, but I'm not sure what other details to share that don't incriminate me or someone else.
I think that's an incredibly long period of time to not feel like you can make eye contact with anyone.
Oh my god! It was classic. Like, kind of like, I'm gonna make a note. It's actually just some doodles that no one's picking up on. Like, it was super. And this was before like smartphones. Were they kind of everywhere? Yeah, they probably were actually, but. That was the other thing, that when you didn't have like working Wi-Fi, so we're kind of trapped in this room that had like no reception. I can't ignore this person by pretending I'm answering work emails, whatever. It was like, we're in this, we're stuck on board this ship now, that's it. And again, to full credence, if anyone's listening who recognizes themselves in this story or otherwise, that person is brilliant. I have faith in the right setting, the right project, the right opportunity would flourish, would smash it, and they are, I'm sure, somewhere today. But yeah, it was literally best part of that. Before that lunchtime break, it was a good hour of like, I don't know where to look.
It sounds like an episode of The Office where it's just like cringe. Like, you just like you don't want to watch, but you have to watch, and it's just like I feel icky already, and I wasn't there.
It was so bad because at one point, this colleague, we'll call them Sandra. They're a woman, but they're not called Sandra. Someone who I really respect and rate, like not super senior in the organization, but like expertise wise, whoa, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I got on really well with her. Just at one point, we kind of caught eye, and she's just looking at me like, kind of like, I can't speak anymore because like it'd gone from, this is a bad waste of my time to like the optics politically. As just, and we caught up about afterwards. And she said like, I'm just gonna have to. I'll be in the room, but I won't be contributing in dialogue. And that was like I was almost like, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed moment. Is like kind of, I can't get involved here because this product is beneath the expectation or the opportunity we're trying to deliver on, the problem we're trying to solve for. And again, a good advocate, someone who would want to be a good citizen. But I'll keep repeating it. Like your end user, whoever's gonna be consuming or experiencing whatever your OD leadership offering is, it's got to feel like they've authored it. Whatever the output, whatever the experience, whatever the campaign, the resource, the tool, they can't feel like an audience because you're in very, very dangerous ground at that point. They've got to feel like they're the authors of it and they own it and they can contribute to it rather than they're apathetic towards it because of its value or otherwise. But yeah. Oh my God, this brings so many. I feel like I'm getting the energy like I'm back in that room now.
Yeah, we need to move on swiftly.
Get you out of there.
But like, what? Just why did no one pull the plug? Like at lunchtime, why wasn't it just not like? It sounds like the best thing to do. We'll just stop it there. Like we've got what we need to make a decision.
What I think it needed in that moment, and again, this is a reflection of hierarchy. And by the way, it's my version of the story, so it's all about my preferences and so on. It needed someone to take ownership of a mistake, an honest mistake that was extremely public. So you imagine you've got 20 to 25 people in the room who you've selected for this pilot, framing it as, we need your feedback, but this is going to be brilliant. We're building something really robust and good. And they've carved out time for the day, which is a lot of time for anyone's calendar, but a day. And what it needed really was that person who's kind of the lead to have that conversation during the lunch break, come back 20 minutes late than usual, hold up, say, hey, look, we have failed our own expectations. We will now use the next hour, 90 minutes for this. And I've seen this happen elsewhere, but there's a level of accountability that requires, and sometimes that's career limiting. It's almost easier in that example to allow the third party, the person, to be stood there taking the hits and be like, there's proximity here I don't need because it'll be career limiting for me in this environment. Instead, if I take a step back and allow them to get burnt, I can live to fight another day. Now, that's not right, but that's the rationale for how I think the approach was.
And this is why I've never got on well in politically charged environments in organizations. And I don't, as an intern, like external, it's fine. I seem to be able to navigate those politics way easier. But internally, I think, we've always struggled. Anyway, we promised we'd move on. So it's time for question number 4. Dramatic.
Tell us about your worst first day.
My worst first day was when I turned up and they got the day wrong for when I was meant to be there, which then became a cascade of can I swear honest, like a shit show of just like mistakes in terms of equipment, manager not available, had booked up various meetings for the rest of the week and leave, which, by the way, hey, if you need to take leave or there's something up, I totally get that. But rather than pivot around those other competing interests and organizing all the tactical stuff that should be there, they just didn't. And the irony was there'd been like a fumble during my notice of like, hey, I'm handed in my notice, so I'm available from this day. Like, this is a month's notice. So the inference being I will start on this Monday. And the person didn't flag, oh, there's only specific dates of intake, like say the 1st and the 15th of the month, whatever that would be. So it's like, oh, right. So if I'm available from the 8th, you want me to do nothing. And then it ended up anyway, when I came in on the 15th or whatever it was, they weren't there. They weren't expecting me. They hadn't set up the systems properly. So I'd lost like a week's wages in theory and service in terms of employment service. And then just everything you kind of expect or needed was not in place in terms of like, hey, don't get me wrong, like stuff like your laptop, your company pass, these are things that are one and done, but they should be there when you arrive. They should be, it shows it's a reflection of actually how thoughtful are they about actually what they think you need for that first day. And it kind of carried on like that. I remember that vividly for like the first 3 or 4 months. It was like, what is this place? What is it? No one's actually thinking deliberately about, okay, how do I plan ahead for some of this stuff? What does a 90-day plan look like? I was really fortunate. There was like a change in the structure, and the manager who came in afterwards, they were fantastic in terms of resetting and having like a complete level set of like, I don't know what's gone before, but I kind of need to get aligned with you around what priorities are, how we're going to work. Can we treat this almost as a de facto 90 days to reset and go again? I don't know how you're thinking or feeling about this place, but I feel like it's been short of the expectation I hope you had. And they were spot on. But thinking back on it, that was my worst first day. It was one before T minus whatever day, they'd messed up on the dates in terms of saying, hey, these are the only days you can start around the choreography of my notice. Happens, I know, but it was annoying. And then secondly, when I arrived, there was like, this guy's starting today? It was kind of like, not really, is he? I don't know. The manager's not here. I don't know. I remember the security guard was so baffled as well. Bless them. They were like, you don't work here. It's like, no, I'm starting work here. It's like, your name's not down. It's like, they're on holiday. I can't call them. I'm like, I can't let you in this building. And in like central London office as well, they were like so particular about security. I was like, Christ, like I can't even get in the building on the first day. Luckily, someone who went on to be like a really close work friend, they were like, again, it was in the TA team or something. They they got wind of this and were like, I will come to the front door. I don't know what systems have been set up, but I will speak to the security guard and so on. And then yeah, they got me in. But it was I remember those first like 6 to 8 weeks especially were rough because again, it was like, kind of, am I meant to be doing something? Are you doing something to prepare me or sort me out to make the most of this? And it just, yeah, it was downhill from there. But like I said, it was short term. But that's probably my worst first day I've had.
It does beg the question, based on all that, could you genuinely try and start work or an organization by just walking up to the front door and say, hey, yeah, this is my first day, and they go, oh, they've done this again, have they? Because if I've heard that story once, I've heard it a million times, right? But like, I genuinely think in some of these large organizations, you could walk up to the front door, talk to security, you could blag your way in, sit yourself at a desk. Granted, you wouldn't be getting paid, so there's not much point in it other than for you're throwing shits and giggles. But like, it seems like a plausible thing you could do. Maybe make a TV show out of it. You know, every episode you start a different company without actually working there. There you go, BBC, take that one.
I don't think, you know what? I think it happens more regularly than we perhaps think. But also, I think there are people out there just for the crack who would turn up like and just kind of see how aware they could get. Yeah, Toby, you would be all over that. I do remember there was a guy when I worked at university. This is a tangent, but he worked in. He became like a bit of a legend for this because it's kind of an open secret. He used to do this, where he'd walk around like on Fridays with Toby, help me out here. I'm not going to describe it to you. Like the inside of a PC, like all the hardboard, all the bits that are soldered on, all that gear and the wires.
You know what? You did an okay thing there. I'm not going to try and pick you up on any of the terminology.
Slightly condescending, but I'll take it. Yeah.
I mean, hardboard is the one I'm really going to pick you up on. Motherboard, but it's fine.
Motherboard.
And hardboard is something you'd buy from B&Q or a DIY store.
Other retailers are available. His thing was to be walking around with a set of motherboards. If you see someone in the hallway, you just kind of like, hey, what are you up to today? Oh, mate, it's all happening. And just like kind of and like, but he'd be strolling on the campus and then like you'd see him reading a newspaper, having a coffee or whatever, and it was like an artifact to do no work. So he's like, hey, what are you up to today, John? He's like, I'm waiting for a delivery to help fix this. And he just pointed him over. It's like, oh, right, okay, cool, that again. And then he would walk around, and then come the afternoon, if he fancied like finishing early, he'd just be like, he'd start throwing drops of like, I just can't do anything like this. It lasted years, apparently, doing this little shtick at the end of weeks, like where he just fancied like an extra half day or something if the sun was out or whatever. But yeah, not quite turning up went on the wrong day or when you don't have a job. But
My inspiration, my muse. I want to know
Yeah,
that
I know.
person and learn all their secrets.
Did people like him?
So this was the thing. I think a prickly personality, I would say, because the moment you try and pull at the thread of like, well, that me calling it hardboard or whatever for a start, but like people asking like, what's going on with that? Like I've seen you multiple fortnights with that. Like he would be a bit prickly because he was defensive of his cover, but would have instances of huge generosity in terms of the time and expertise they offered, like in a way that was quite heartening. So they were well liked, but also I think it was a good illustration of management not feeling comfortable having an awkward conversation of like, are you absconding every week or two here? Is that what I'm hearing and seeing? Because I can't be everywhere on campus to prove it. But, and again, a good example of like you measure outputs, outcomes, not just like presenteeism and all that. So he was, I'd say, like broadly well liked, but also had been there so long, it was kind of like coming back to conditions and environments. It was accepted. This is a feature, not a bug. That how this person approaches their line of work.
I just
I
think
know
of
some.
like similar people, and it was always like, oh, him again. So I'm glad that he was liked.
Yeah. See, I don't know if I know this person or not, but I don't think I do because I don't remember anyone walking around with hardboard. For our listeners, that was in inverted commas. And having just Googled hardboard, yes, I was exactly right. It's sheets of wood that you would buy from a DIY store. Having said I wouldn't pick you up, and I'm absolutely tearing you to shreds.
Let him cook, as the kids would say.
Let him cook. So the. Yeah, I don't think I know this person, but I know of people who've done similar things. That their whole work life is just spent either looking busy or being really nice to people, so no one challenges them because they look busy and they're really nice people, and that is about like the sum total of the value they were adding to the team. You know, we all got sweets a couple of times a day, but did we get any work done? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I think it's so funny when you see that in organizations. I think once you get past like a certain head count as well, like a couple of thousand, you start seeing these archetypes pop up now and again who've, especially if they've had long service. But again, I come back to, it's not necessarily like they might be doing that, but it's what's the environment? What does it say about the environment that's allowing that to happen? Is that good, bad, or indifferent?
And talking about environments allowing things to happen, I think it's time for our next question. Different sound effect this time.
I was going to say that felt like more of a punch kind of.
So
yeah,
we're playing with the form here.
It's escalating. It's escalating.
Oh, is it? Oh, we need to like do it like a tone shift every time. Like,
no, I feel like you've taken like the Roman Reigns walkout theme and just chopped up bits of it and just playing it every so often. But anyway.
Okay, you've ruined the run up to that question. So let's go back to question number 5.
What is the worst thing you have ever been asked to do at work?
Listen to sound effects.
What's the worst thing I've ever been asked to do at work? That's a tough one. The worst thing I've ever been asked to do at work was being told or asked to get a team member to be in a certain location, a certain place where there was no requirement to really for the work for a certain day or point in time, knowing that actually that person had a situation, a circumstance where they could really do with being near home. Now, this one's a bit sensitive, so I don't want to elaborate too much on it. Yeah, big puff of cheeks there from Toby. So one of those where I was kind of, as a manager and leader, I was like caught between the way someone worked, the person above me, and then someone on my team. I'll say they just needed to contingency. They just needed to be at home. I had total confidence and faith that they could do the work we needed that day. But there was something about, I think it was, I'm trying to remember the specifics now, but we wanted to be in this location, almost like a showcase for if this stakeholder is on site the day we're there, that we can have like be visible again, like basically presenteeism 101. And it was on during a work pattern where the inference was you would be on site, like if you did 2 days a week roughly, it's accepted you do these 2 days. I'd agreed, like I was happy with this person, how they're operating, the work they do is a good standard. And they had like a personal circumstance they weren't ready to kind of declare or share with the organization. And it wasn't necessary. They didn't even have to tell me really, but they did. And the person above me was like, I want person X, I want the team there on this day. I want you to go. I've heard they don't arrive or they don't come in on this day. I want you to. I want them there. I want them in. I was like, okay. And that moment when the conversation came up, I was like, I need to buy some time about one, what do I decide to do, and two, how do I like navigate or share the outcome? Because the moral thing is just leave that person be because they can do the work, they can make it happen. Sure. And then there's the political, what's the word? The political hierarchical thing of like resisting or kind of being viewed to resist. And then how you deal with the outcome from all that. So it's literally, right, okay, I just need to buy time to manage the outcome. I always think I've stolen this from some startup author who he's borrowed it for someone else. He's like, where there is doubt, there is in fact no doubt. So where there is doubt about what the right thing to do is, the truth is there is no doubt. You actually just don't know how to execute on the preferred outcome, which was here was they needed to be at home. There was a thing they were working through with their family and we didn't need them there really. They could dial in at best. And so then my thing was to push back and say, hey, we'll have XYZ on the day and such will not be available because they have these deliverables that are essential that I needed to do, which was true, which is correct. Here is my contingency on my suggestion for actually what's a better workaround and a better experience. So the outcome was like kind of saying to that, my leader was, your preference might be this, but actually, I didn't shed any light on it. Like they're not going to be available. They're not going to be around. That's my call. And, I'll be accountable for that. Here's my suggestion around actually why it's a better idea. What's and presented it almost as like, this is not what you're thinking or feeling about, like, because you're focusing on the big picture or outcome, like these details would be better delivered on for the client if they're just working at home and it suits us better. They immediately, the emails back and forth about this were like very turned into like a game of Cluedo or Columbo about like the whys and whats. And it came back to, it was like, look, we can have a conversation offline. I'm happy to, because I wasn't comfortable with like something like this documented when someone's shared something in confidence and it's not, my news to share otherwise. But the outcome is I'll be saying to them, you don't need to be on site for that day. And I'm accountable for that decision, how that lands in terms of the conversation we had with the client on the day, but also in terms of, again, how we work together. And the pushback, like the way I framed it to the person, and they came around to it, I'll give them credit, was you make decisions we all make decisions based on the best data we have, but also there's a day after when I need to pick up the pieces and I need to keep that team performing, keep them motivated or help them engage with what they're doing. What you feel like is a simple cosmetic request actually is going to make my life and my job harder, which then makes everything harder for all of us collectively. I would say they didn't like it, but the rationale kind of landed, and then the meeting got off without an issue and everything. But that's probably, there's all sorts of like other stupid examples. Mostly, like, I don't know when I got this question originally, is like there's always like a hygiene question or something that's come up with someone in their career. But that was the one where it's like, this is going to create a problem for me to have this conversation, but I know it's the right thing to do, is to have it in some form, because this is the wrong outcome. This is absolutely the wrong outcome to push for this.
Every episode we usually have like a t-shirt quote, and I think the where there is doubt there is no doubt is Patrick's merch for this ep for sure.
It was in the book. I'm going to get the author wrong, so I'm not going to try.
Don't worry, it's going to be It's going to be credited to you on the
okay.
T-shirt anyway. Patrick Mullarkey, 2026, work sucks.
But it is like, if you think about it, I remember reading that quote and it jumped out at me. It's like, we all have conversations and stuff at work. And Callie, you were talking about earlier, the person you're working with and everything. Where there is doubt, there is no doubt. What that means is actually, you know the outcome, you know what good or bad feels like. You just don't know how to rationalize next step or the destination to get out or move forward. And that's actually, I think it really serves people well if they're like, okay, if you've got emotion, that is data you just can't quantify at the moment, but like don't ignore it, like sit with it, explore it, validate it, get feedback. So yeah, where there is doubt, there is in fact no doubt.
I mean, I don't think we need to I don't think you can really you analyzed it yourself. You did a really good, like, again, I think the theme of this episode so far is about the transactional nature of like an employee employer or manager and leader and employee, or whatever way you want to define that relationship, is that it has to be a relationship of balance. And I think wherever we found ourselves in the modern world of work, it isn't. And it shouldn't really have had taken you to try and create a scenario where that wasn't able to happen. It's like, well, in a genuine, and I kind of hate the term you say, oh, well, human first leadership kind of thing, because it's like, well, it's not human first. It's got to be human and business balanced relationship. It can't be one or the other, because there's a nature of a contract and a relationship that needs to be balanced. But it shouldn't have taken you to do that. I think I've talked about a boss on this podcast, a boss of mine previously, that said, look, I've been told to give you a pay rise to make you stay, but by everything you've told me, you shouldn't stay. I would recommend you leave. And you're like, well, that's just, again, that person has gone against everything within their environment that's told them to act and behave in a way, and probably caught a lot of flack for it. And so that just doesn't make sense in my head, unless you're going back to the politics of any given situation. So
I think it's just to build on what you're saying there is be deliberate. However you approach these conversations or whatever your view, some people are going to be listening to that example I described from, apologies, listener, for the limited detail I can share on it. Some people are going to be like, hey, sorry, if person X requested that, it's got to happen in my world, in my environment. That's cool. But be deliberate about that, about if that's the, not code of conduct, but if that's the rules of engagement in your environment, then accept that's the culture and roll with it. Be proud of it, maybe even. But if you resent that or you resist that, again, don't ignore that. Like, you have to take action. And whether that's in how you behave or whether that's about where you place yourself, like in that environment or elsewhere, be deliberate about it. Because again, like, we've got the best part of, what will it be, 40, 50 years of employment of some form ahead of us, possibly more. And it's like, you could be deliberate about it in a way that's positive and will access and unlock opportunities. Or are you comfortable just being, I suppose, subject to the environment you operate in? Now, I'm not saying any of it will be perfect or completely to your taste, but don't be willfully ignorant to what you want to do, what you want to be known for. Take action where you can.
So wise.
I don't know. This is all too heavy for a podcast. I'm shooting from the hip.
And this is the beautiful thing about this podcast, is like these sets of questions get so many different types of answers. So you get someone that is
100%.
like completely just like short and I can't believe, or shock and awe, I can't believe that was ever said, or that we were in that situation. There's then those ones where there's hilarity, and then there's like the thinkers as well. So I think it takes not a genius to figure out that you're in the deep thinkers section of
I'll take that
the
today.
work.
I did run some of these answers by my wife, and she's like, that's terrible. I wouldn't listen to you talk about anything, let alone that. But
this won't get published. No, this is great.
Well,
we won't push it out there. Sorry,
One for the
illusion. This is just for us. Okay, with that in mind, let's move forward to question number 6.
Tell us about an easy change that would have made a huge difference.
When you ask that, do you mean in an organization, in my life, in my professional career today? Would you talk to me, Callie? Come on.
Yeah, from like a world of work, right? Like we've had people say like just say thank you, right? Like what's something that would have been very minimal effort on the employer or the manager or whatever context you want to apply it to that would have had a significant impact in a positive way?
Credit the author.
Mm.
So not just thank you, credit the author. You can hear me banging on the table now because this is like a point of principle for me. If you've got a piece of work, an idea, a concept, whether it's a peer, whether it's an employee you're managing, do not present that work as your own if you've got an opportunity to credit the author. I get in brainstorming and ideation, things come together and there might not be a sole author. Credit the crew or the processes that got you there. I've seen it in teams I've worked with where the group dynamics, there's lots of things that have affected them, but one of them that's quite consistent as a trait is there will be a lack of crediting the author, which is like the flip of what we did, Toby, when you're asking that workshop, why didn't they cut that thing short and all that? It's about accountability. The flip side of that is being selfless in terms of crediting the author. So when I've got like a flurry of examples, I won't bore you with them, but like I've been sat in rooms where I was like, that's my slide. That's my answer idea. Or I recognize that's John or Janice's idea from my team. That literally down to, there was one instance of the search on Unsplash for the image to go over the text that was kind of my slogan or my fit, not my thing, sorry, my team's thing. I was like, you're passing that off. That's not yours. Like, and I'm not saying people have ownership of these things, but if you credit the author, it makes people so much more willing to collaborate because they know they can trust you to showcase their efforts in a positive light, in a positive way. But also it shows a bit more humility that you're not just using everyone around you as a stepping stone to whatever the promotion, the next destination is. Credit the author. The world would be a better place if we had that as a habit more ingrained across not just the world of work, but more broadly. Credit the author. It's such a big thing. It's such a big thing. Yeah.
Love that for lots of
That's
reasons.
really,
Callie, I feel like
it's a
there was
really
a
good one.
specific example or something that resonated when I was talking about it. You were like, yes, nodding. I can.
Callie's
really
work's
see
been
that.
ripped off loads. So
Okay.
I've had numerous. Sorry, Callie, I'm speaking for you, but I've had numerous conversations with Callie where you kind of go, "Huh, yeah, that's Callie's thing. That's Callie." And literally, even this week, I saw it and I was like, "I'm pretty sure I've seen that somewhere before, and I'm pretty sure Callie did it." And I've not actually spoken to Callie about it yet this week, but the way
Really?
Callie pointed to me, I think Callie may have also seen it.
No,
Wow.
I thought you were going to talk about how I accidentally ripped you off and then went, "Oh shit!"
Oh yeah, yeah. And earlier this week, Callie's accidentally ripped off the Freeformers brand for her own game. So there you go.
So
Well,
about
she just
24
credited the
hours
author
after
then.
sending it was like, "Oh, this is a lot too close for comfort."
To be
and I don't
fair,
know why
you
I
were
didn't see
using
that sooner.
you were using red, yellow, blue, and green, and within the Freeforms color palette, we don't use green. We only use the three colors. So
I was gonna, yeah, no green. That makes it okay. Can I share quickly a quick story where I've seen this go very wrong? Just quickly, where a friend at work, like, and she had come up. I'm trying to remember the context, but this stock phrase and principles for an approach to a project, and they were working with another individual who had a habit of collecting pieces, passing it off as their own work. And then we were in a meeting, and I remember talking to my friend beforehand. She was like, "I think they're going to present my thing. But like, it's not simple. Like the tagline and concepts are simple, but there's a lot of depth. It's some technical depth." I was like, oh, "Okay, well, why'd you mention that?" It's like, if anyone asks a question, like, this is gonna go downhill pretty rapidly, like, because I can answer it, but not them. And the person started to present and got through it. And then they got to the element I'm just describing that they passed off as their own. And you can see suddenly there was like one or two questions. They had like some solution engineers in the room who were curious to pull at the thread a bit. And my friend, she was just very discreet how she did this. She just kind of, and she just kind of tapped me on the shoulder. It's like, I got to leave now because they're gonna have to deal with this, not me, because only I can answer this. Okay, see you later, bye. So, Jackie, I'm leaving the presentation. I'll be back in like 20 minutes. I've got to be somewhere. And you could see the person's face because they were at that point where they were like, I've got to call time on this. And do you know when you got someone in a room who's like, hey, can I defer to Toby on this element of what I'm talking about? But maybe you've agreed beforehand or whatever. The engineers, the solution engineers, were starting to get in the weeds of this. And my friend was like, yeah, if I can't, I as a principal, I don't say I need my trumpet blown, but if I'm not going to get the credit, I'm not going to deal with the aftermath. So I'll be back. And it was for about 5-10 minutes, not a bloodbath, but it was rough because it was kind of like the whole concept idea kind of created in on themselves. And then what happened afterwards, catching up with some of the team, they were like, yeah, we knew straight away when we saw that on the slide, that's probably your friend's thinking. That can't be the person in front of us. And they're like, we're just gonna see what the answer is here and just ask some questions because before we commit to it. That's like worst case scenario, but also like your comeuppance, like where, and it was so elegantly done by my friend. She just like the way she leaned over and whispered, was like, I'm gonna leave now because this is about to go to hell. And I was like, all right, bye, I'm leaving. Peace out. And walked out. I was like, oh my God, what's happening there? But yeah, credit the author. Credit the author.
Let him cook.
I am so proud of that person for doing that.
Oh, and it wasn't long.
Can we get them on the podcast? Because
yeah, if I dig a bit, if I find no, you will not get them on the podcast. Absolutely not. And the point in time they were in their career and how they've evolved since, it was just like fantastic because it was like there's ways to feedback about your frustration on something without having to be inappropriate or unprofessional. But they were like, I'm just engaging with this. They can own it if they want to, and then if the pieces come back afterwards, I'll pick them up. And yeah, so yeah. I can't talk anymore about that example though, because that will get awkward real quick.
Okay, well, in which case then we'll move swiftly on into question number 7. Getting better at that.
So you can take this literally or figuratively, but what is the reoccurring nightmare you have had about work?
That's a great question. I'm trying to think about.
Be under no illusion, Patrick. They're all great questions.
All right.
Don't just call this one out.
Don't get defensive. I think the recurring one I've had is about technical logistical challenges at venues or events when you're running stuff. I run workshops and stuff online, and I've had that nightmare where the Wi-Fi's gone down, or suddenly there's an update on your MacBook or whatever. Stupid. Now I know that sounds trivial, but when you're depending on a tool or a system to present a message or help run sessions, that is the worst. And I had that. That literally happened in the UAE when I was running workshops towards the start of my career, where there was this. I'm trying to remember the detail of it. It's something like an old version of Microsoft, and whatever I had wasn't the right version, for the materials and slides to open up, and it was horrific. And I actually now remember it. I had nightmares like occasionally a few months afterwards where I dreamed that I'm in an exotic location or something, and this is a key moment of like this great group I'm going to work with, and I don't know, I can't get the laptop working or I can't get this open. I'm sure it's rooted in that, but the dreams, it would escalate to stupid stuff to them like, I lose my voice or I can't do XYZ. But that for me is like, if I'm dependent on like a piece of kit or tool, I always feel a bit nervous or uncomfortable around it because it's like, wait, these things shouldn't be a single point of failure, but sometimes they are. Even like one of the organizations me and Toby worked with years ago, way back when, I saw a photo where someone sent, they were presenting on a Mac, but they were using like like different types of cables, and the photo they sent of how the adapter they used to try and get this thing on screen was hilarious because there's like 5 things connecting into this adapter. I was always thinking this has to be like easily the most difficult way to do this, but also I have total empathy with that person because they can't get that thing to work. So there's a bit of a dull one, but like I genuinely, the night before a workshop, especially if I'm traveling, that stuff like that will be rattling around my brain around like, is the kit working? Is it fully charged?
I think we've all had that dream where we wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Goodness, is my laptop's hardboard present?
You know, the hardboard. Who's wherever left that? Did that make it off the plane?
You're having nightmares about technology that just simply doesn't exist.
And that is a great example of an illogical, irrational fear manifesting. And wow. It just does. It just does. So yeah, that would be mine. Pretty dull, but like it's true.
Well, I'm going to throw over to Callie because Callie, you run events all the time. Do you empathize with this recurring nightmare?
So I made a post about it a couple months ago, so I could timestamp it a little bit, but it took me 3 major events, 2 of which I personally was responsible financially for, before I actually had a nightmare that I'd totally bumbled something and was just at an event that I thought was a month from then or something and just couldn't pull it together. So I counted that as a win that it took me 3 full event cycles before I had that happen, because in my history of how nightmares work, usually it's really specific mundane things that are actively happening. So I was actually kind of amused when it happened, even though it was incredibly uncomfortable as genuine nightmares are, right? Very stressful.
Can I say I'm a little bit disappointed to the answer to the question, Patrick?
I'm hurt.
The reason being, because knowing what questions we have left, I don't think this is going to be one of your answers now. But I thought it would have been, I'm going to share a story here, that when me and Patrick started working together at an organisation, for whatever reason, I can't agree that this was a really good thing to do, on people's first day, you'd ask them, if you're a vegetable, what vegetable would you be and why? And so, but this was done with the whole team in a circle. And we're talking maybe 20, 25 people all in a circle, Monday morning. Patrick's the only new starter that day. Hey, Patrick, we're doing so cool, quirky stuff because we're a small business. What vegetable would you be and why? Patrick, can you remember what vegetable you said?
Do, vividly, because I was
I'm not surprised, because I thought that would have been your recurring nightmare.
Yeah. So for context, I was like, Patrick Mullarkey, as Irish as you come, in terms of someone who's not born there, but Irish citizen, Irish family, whatever. I was like, as they started to ask the question, because there was one other person who started on my team, actually, Laura, Toby, if you remember Laura. Yeah.
Yep.
So they asked her first, and I was like, I had this inner monologue for 30 seconds. It's like, I can't say potato because that's so obvious. And why don't I say something quirky? Because this is a fun, quirky pace. And then I said, I think it was red cabbage, is what I said.
It wasn't even just cabbage. It was specific red cabbage.
Because I was like, I didn't know what was going on. I think I was fasting or cutting weight or trying to do something. And it was involved a lot of coleslaw or something for lunch. Again, as a London Irish staple. But as I gave that answer, the stumbling that occurred around it's red cabbage because, it's X, Y, Z. And it's see people were looking around, it's definitely the first time that answer had been given. And secondly, definitely a terrible logic provided, whatever I can't remember what I said exactly. But I remember thinking, yep, this is going to go great here. And then, that kind of set the tone for what followed with cabbage.
I feel like if you're going to ask questions like that, you have to give advance notice. So you at least have a couple of minutes to figure out what direction I want to take this.
And the thing is as well, you're trying to get a sense of tone. This was on the Monday stand-up. I was like, wait, how informal are these things? Because it feels some of the updates are pretty commercial. I don't understand them yet, but I'm kind of getting a sense of that. So I was like, I've got to try and take this thing seriously, I think. I don't know. But yeah, that was an absolute. I remember Toby.
Sorry, that was you taking it seriously, giving that.
That was me trying to find getting too meta with it. What's a serious what's a serious answer to this stupid question on my first day? So that was it.
If you could go back in time and answer that question again now, what would you answer?
Potato, because it's like the most
It's
Irish
a
thing.
quick. Yeah,
It's the most Irish thing in the world that's not Irish. So yeah.
it's a quick win. It's a quick win. It's an open goal. Slot it home, because the World Cup's on.
And imagine how relieved everyone was. It was like, not another potato. They were like, red cabbage. Oh, that's something interesting to hear on my Monday morning. Probably everyone was loving it. They just didn't say it at the time.
I don't remember that question being asked to any new starters before or since. And I don't know whether it's because I got this such visceral memory of you being asked it that it literally. Because on that day, I was like, well, you were the only person that started. I even forgot there was Laura started that day. And I've just blocked it out from my memory just to zero on this one guy to this one question. And that was the last time me and Patrick worked together.
No one else needed to answer the question, just the new people?
Yes. See, I'm getting reassurance from Callie with the question she's like, I'm trying to translate this. And again, I would say to people asking, like, I don't think there was any malice in it, but it was like, is that like the best first question to ask for people trying
to? We're crazy, we're wacky, we're zany, we're creative. Vegetables. Yeah, I don't think it was a great. Look, I'm on your side. To put someone under that pressure on.
Don't backtrack now.
No. Let me finish. I am on your side. However, you could have done better. You could have done so much better. Like I just don't get it. Even now you've told me what was going through your head. I still don't know what was going through your head to answer red cabbage.
I don't need to answer to you or anyone else in that circle. That thing.
You kind of do. It's a podcast, mate. We ask questions, you answer them. That's kind of the vehicle that we're.
Callie, what's the next question, please? I feel like we're
hang on.
You brought me back like 10 years to something that I think was actually really fun, and maybe I only think it was fun because I came up with it. I don't know if I actually did. To credit the author, it may or may not have been me, but it was likely me. But we picked like a theme, and there was a team of like 7 at the time. And so you would have to get 7 things from that theme, and then everyone would have to guess which one you picked as each person. Oh. And then you would disclose. And so like one of them was like fancy donuts, right? And so like I had one that was like a peep bunny in a car with wheels, and that was one of the people. Or like we had someone who did those little tiny like alcohol shots, which was, I don't know why we allowed that one to be selected, but like again, small quirky team. But that was actually super fun because everybody got a turn and sort of had some say in like school supplies.
Inclusive, yeah.
Yeah, like it was actually super fun, and I've never seen anyone do it before or since. So there's my like small team building activity for you all.
Nice.
I think that the dynamic's different there because you're, like you say, you're all doing it. You're not putting the 2 new starters out of a team of like 20, 25. Yeah, like I never answered that question, and I'm not going to do it now because I have too much
pressure's on now. Yeah,
I have too much self-respect to even answer the question, to be honest. So let's move on to our 8th and final question.
If you choose to accept, tell us about your worst coworker.
And it can't be me. I've realized I've just set myself up for a fall here. But it could be. No, that's not fair. It could be me, but I highly doubt it.
If Toby was your coworker from hell, please name him. The other pattern that I've started is if you choose not to name said person, you can just call them Toby as a place filler.
The transcripts then, when they go online, like AI is like searching for Tobys out there who've completed all this malpractice. So the question is, the worst coworker, the worst teammate, or
coworker from hell.
And then does it have to be, just so I'm clear, to protect the innocent and myself, does it have to be, do I have to have someone in mind, or is it just like the traits, the behaviors I would expect?
Just the traits, the behavior. You don't need to tell us who it is, where they were. Just like, what would the behavior? Yeah, what would they do?
We had a serial entrepreneur talk about himself and how he's so terrible to himself. So I mean, you can really go anywhere you want.
Wow, that's brilliant. I would say it's someone who punches down. There's been a couple of individuals who I've worked with who've intellectually have been sensational, but how they communicate, it's not the most helpful phrase, but they kind of punch down in terms of, if you're having a debate about an idea, an approach, you need to try and foster an environment where people feel comfortable contributing, but also don't feel like there's consequence to that. And there's been a couple of individuals I've worked with down the years who just kind of punched down in front of not audiences, in front of groups, where if there was a more junior staff member or someone who was lower in the hierarchy in some way, and it affected how they communicated and treated that person. But they would pivot so quickly if there was a peer or someone more senior who they're interacting with. And it was so, again, there's just two people in particular I'm thinking of, like, it was so apparent, like that's how they kind of operated. And the way it would make people seize up, you could see it would really affect some people, about how they'd approach a conversation. So, like, all that good stuff around, like, it's not like, be conscious of like how people interpret how you communicate. It's not about your intent, but how you'll leave them feeling, and being aware of that. This was the exact opposite, dialed up to 10 on this. And what it meant was, in the two instances I'm thinking of, is like, you never got to a point where the best idea won. It was just either who had the most resilience to keep going with the conversation with that person and accepting, okay, there's going to be some punching down, but we'll get to a good conclusion, or they just wouldn't engage and they'd self-select out. And I think that is actually, it's a feature of when you talk about workplaces that really struggle to engage their employees, or kind of would be the archetype of the work sucks persona of like how people get frustrated. It's when they've got instances like that. So when people punch down as they communicate, the best collaborators in the most senior levels I've seen have shown a level of humility, but also intellectual curiosity to know that how I communicate, how I arrive at a conversation will affect so many people around this table and how they contribute with it. To end on a more positive note, silver lining, there was someone at a management consultancy I worked under who was a tier or two above me, who could be very direct, sometimes blunt if they were frustrated, but there was normally a good reason why they were frustrated. But they were as good as anyone I've seen about making the most junior staff member feel like if they were in the room, they were worthy of being in the room and having a seat at the table, and bringing people around, even though they were like massively time poor and having to deliver a lot of big stuff. They were exceptional about how they left people feeling about the interaction with them, whilst also never underestimating, you best bring your best A game to that conversation with that person, because they are whip smart, super bright, got lots on. They'll give you the time of day, but also it's not a placebo to just kind of waste their time, whatever. And then, no surprise, they got followership from it. They got people following them to organization to organization. Even in instances where there weren't roles, there were people reaching out to them saying, hey, I've got to work with you again, and so on. So it has a ripple effect that people don't realize, I don't think.
I love that.
How's that? Has this stumped you?
Yes, as you have done, I think, on various moments on this podcast. The only question that really came up as you were talking was like, when are you going to write a book about collaboration? Because I think there's a lot of things that you've talked about the interconnectedness of the human experience to enable collaboration. A lot of inverted commas thought leadership is about communication and how you say things. But I think, and it's obvious, it generally comes as a pair, communication and collaboration. But I actually think if you just remove the word communication from it, obviously that's still important, but there are several things that you are kind of like hanging your hat on about, like, that enables you to collaborate better. So when are you writing the collaboration book?
It's available next week from All Good Books. No. Thank you, first of all. I suppose when my AI overlords deem me worthy to create something for me. No, I joke. I do believe in it, though. I do believe that, and some of it links back to your best intent. If you've got a good intent, positive intent, and you're transparent and clear and consistent on it, people will work around or work with how you communicate and how you arrive at a conversation. but that consistency and clarity is clear about what your intent is, what you're looking to drive towards. And it's often the best teams, the best people teams I've worked in. They've had that, even in the most trying circumstances. They've had that, and I think looking forward to the future, it's what people teams need more of internally and to the business too.
Well, and that is a lovely way to end the book. So we'll just copy up that transcript, put that in the chat. Anything else to add, Callie, before we end up with our bonus question?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was like the most gentle, thoughtful mic drop moment I've heard in a long time. I'm doing the summary after that question, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's do.
Okay.
Let's.
I'll save it.
Okay. Oh, Callie's got thoughts. Okay, so good thoughts, I imagine. Not like, wow, what a terrible episode.
So, red cabbage.
Yeah, you're giving off some very red cabbage energy right now. Anyway, it's time.
I'm gonna listen before we go on. I'm gonna turn up at a conference you're speaking at. I'm gonna throw red cabbage or something at you. I have to get you back for this, for bringing it back up.
Look, if you want me to edit out, I can edit it out. But
not at all.
I don't think it's been a while since you've seen me on stage. I think I could handle that. I ripped my trousers on stage in November, so I think if I can handle that, I can handle throwing red cabbage being thrown at me.
Just bursting onto the stage. Anyway, carry on.
Such energy and vigor that I have, but even my trousers can't contain me. That sounds weird. Bonus question time. What was your longest commute?
An hour and 50 minutes.
Great. Okay, so Callie, hour and 50 minutes. Are we talking? Describe the journey. Give us some colours.
Office junior, first job in an office, and it was a job before I went to uni. I got the job. The offices were based out of West London in a place called Ealing, for those who know it. I lived in a place called Heston. It was like a half-hour, 40-minute bus ride. They were moving offices to Wood Green, which is in North London. And as the office junior, I didn't really advocate for myself much. I was very shy. I just did the work. I never checked in, like say, oh, am I part of the move? Like I started the first day and they said, we're moving in 3 weeks, or part of the office is. I was like, cool, okay. I remember the Friday before the move, it's like, oh, you're coming as well. I was like, okay. And my commute went from one bus ride, roughly 35, 45 minutes, depending on traffic, had to get a bus to the London Underground, the West London branch near Heathrow, for those who know the airport, all the way down up to, I think it was about 4 or 5 stops from Cockfosters, like Wood Green, Turnpike Lane. And for our North American listeners and viewers, that might not sound like a crazy distance or journey time, but in London, like, an hour roughly is what hour and 10 is pretty common. For the office junior who is earning $0, I remember the cost of my travel basically counted for half my salary every month. I was living at home at the time, but it went from like a weekly thing of like so many bus rides to like the underground, the buses. And I remember I kept falling asleep on the train home because I'd get home we had to stay till 5:30. I'd get home between 7:30 and 8 most days, and I wasn't built for it. I was nodding off on the train, and then I couldn't sleep at night times as well. So
we haven't talked about this, but we should add London Underground tax on some of these timings, because the London Underground in your commute is one of the worst things to have to endure, I would say, unless you're on the new Elizabeth line, which I've got to say,
which I am now.
Oh well,
but that's karma. I did my penance.
Yeah, you've earned it. I mean, I used to have to go on the Bakerloo line, and we're ostracizing a lot of our audience here, but the Bakerloo line is like hell on earth. It is from like the 1920s, and it's hot, and it's why anyone would deem putting fabric on an underground train a good idea. It baffles me. It absolutely baffles me. Like, what decision? Be like the metro in New York? Just stainless steel everywhere, so you can hose it down and disinfect it with bleach. Not suck up all the dust and dead skin and stuff and then spit it back out every time someone sits on it. So we do need to add that tax. I've got to admit, Patrick, you're not going to be one of our longest commutes, but certainly not the shortest by any stretch. I think you're in the middle. You're the average. You're average.
I mean, I appreciate that. LinkedIn headline wrote itself. The average Patrick. There you go.
Well, and your middle name's Joseph, so I really missed an opportunity to say an average Joe. But there we
Average
go.
Joe. There you go.
An average is in the middle, and your middle name is Joe, so it works on so many levels. Callie, whilst I've just done that really entertaining and hilarious example of that question, you've got enough time now to think about the summary of how would you describe the life and times of one Patrick Joseph Mullarkey.
Yeah, if I only got to say one thing, I would say you leave people better than you found them. But I want to add to that and say that, at the beginning, when you talked about the longest amount of time that you've been places and how long your career has been, like, I've just been thinking about that this whole time and just the profound impact on so many places that having someone thoughtful like you involved in making decisions and just like the energy that you must bring to those rooms, like that's something that I'm genuinely like jealous of, because I have not worked with people who communicate the way that you do or think thoughtfully the way that you do. And as someone who serially stays in places far too long, like I just am jealous that I've never gotten to interact with someone like you on a consistent basis.
That is so lovely and so thoughtful to hear. Thank you. That's really wonderful. Thank you.
It is a reflection back of you. Thank you.
And I agree. So what...
Oh dear, dear, oh dear.
I agree. In summary, Patrick's all right. No, I've said what I think about Patrick a million times, and it very much echoes what Callie said. So thank you for joining us on the podcast, Patrick.
Thank you.
One of my top 10 people called Patrick. See, I just can't give a serious, genuine, nice comment, but I genuinely do agree with everything Callie says, and more, because I'm competitive and there's a one-upmanship here. But Patrick, if everybody listening to this and watching you now is to go, wow, I agree with Callie and Toby and how they think about Patrick, how do they get in touch with you? How can they see and hear more of what you do?
Best two places is probably on LinkedIn. So first of all, if you look up Patrick Mullarkey, and then as well, if you want to check out my site, Byte and Build, that's BYTE and build.com. I've set up on my own, doing my own freelance sort of leadership development, facilitation and coaching. So if you've heard some of what I talk about, the tone, the texture of it, and you're interested to hear more, please reach out either via Byte and Build or LinkedIn. I'd love to hear more. And also thank you to you two for creating a platform where people can be vulnerable and talk about this stuff, these questions that are awkward but real. And we don't talk about them enough because sometimes they're easier to ignore, but we should talk about them a bit more, I think.
Well, I think you're just trying to shoehorn in the fact that you could be the third co-host at some point, because I think you'd make a very good addition to the team. However, we're fully booked, so start your own podcast. I shouldn't interview friends because otherwise I just end up as very insincere.
Hurt people, Toby. That's what I'd say on that. Just
all I'm hearing is red cabbage.
Yeah, I know.
We do this on every episode. Well, not every episode, but we have started doing it. So we do just unpack what your LinkedIn URL is, because your name is obviously Patrick Mullarkey. You can't be the only one, possibly. So you are / Mullarkey PJ.
I am, yeah. How did I get hold of that? Jeez.
That's a good one, because sometimes it's just, if you've got the same name as someone else, you just get a random number assigned at the end.
Yes, I've had that.
We have got someone with a unique LinkedIn domain, and if that isn't, that's just worth following him alone. I think just to see that URL and say, wow, incredible scenes. I think we have now got to a point where this podcast can end. So it's just leaves for me, for Patrick, again, thank you so much for being open and honest. Like I say, we have very different types of versions of this podcast, ones that make you think, laugh, cry, gasp. And I think this was one that definitely made us think. So for now, from Toby, Callie and Patrick, it's goodbye.